Also, we have a special Christopher Moore Bite Me drink in the cafe. If you haven't seen it, so check that out. It's kind of special for today. In fact, I think they're going to bring you up one. So anyway, well, today you are here to see Christopher Moore.
And drop the microphone.
I guess that's a sign I shouldn't talk anymore. So please help me welcome Christopher Moore. This is the drink.
That is so radioactive. Seriously, does anybody have to get back to lunch after lunch for work? I signed a bunch of books in advance that are signed, so if you're going to have to leave and we're in line, start trading out. You know, somebody that can stand in line, you know, give your book to somebody else. Because we're all Chris Moore readers and we're that kind of people, right? You know, yes, we can. Thank you for that, by the way, Chicago. I haven't been here for a while because they were touring me in February, and much as I love Chicago, not so much in February. Yeah, I know. I'll come out and see me in San Francisco in February. So are you guys? Let me ask you this. We're gonna talk about that. It's a vampire book. Yeah, there's really not that much to talk about. So do you guys still like rock? I mean, it seems like you're no. I was just wondering. I mean, I didn't know what territory. I was in Phoenix the day before yesterday, and Sarah Palin was in town at the same time I was in Phoenix. So it was interesting. I mean, I'm not that political, but it was. You kind of have to be at some point because the people in Arizona, they like pick their battles really strangely. Like they're like, okay, no Martin Luther King Day and no daylight savings time. Because I don't want the government to put their hand on my dark. I was just like, what an interesting, like, okay, that's it. I'm drawing the line. No Martin Luther King, and daylight savings time. And so, you know, because they did so well with that teabagging thing, I think they started a new party called the Darkies. You know, for all those people who don't want the government to put their hands on their dark. You know, yeah, what could go wrong? Maybe you guys ought to look something up before you name a party. There's so many. I had the morning off today. It was just awesome. I got to watch the news, and I've been on. Okay, yeah. The part of Chicago I forgot about. You're absolutely right. I'm going to wait just a second because I don't really multitask that well. And so I saw in the news today that this was on CNN that cheesecake and bacon can cause cocaine-like addiction. I'm not really. Okay, cheesecake and bacon are good. I think we know that. But I just don't expect anybody out on the corner going, you know what, I suck your dick for a bacon. It's not the same. There are some things that are addiction and there are some things that are just good, you know? Get over that shit. And then I knew I was in Chicago because they go, Life Alert bracelets, which I hadn't seen that out in a while. They go, it has a button, so you can call people if you have a medical, fire, or nutrition alert. And I'm like, a nutrition alert? It's a Domino's button. I'm falling and I need a pizza. I know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get about religion. It's Chicago. So, anyway. You guys probably, if you have, has anybody not heard me talk before in person? Most everybody? Okay, so my readings, basically, I'm sort of famous for not reading. And so they started calling them signings, so then I started not signing. It's because I'm hard to get along with. And so basically, to give you an idea of what to expect at one of my events, basically my events are like sex. Someone introduces me, and then I apologize for half an hour. And then you all line up, and I thank you for coming. And you all go away thinking I smell vaguely of Sharpie marker. So just so nobody's surprised in what's going to happen today, that's pretty much it. Let's see, and I'll catch you up. I haven't been to Chicago in, I think, 4 years. I've been in recovery, not for alcohol or drugs, for narcissism, basically. I'm just taking a little me time. Working on myself. Let's see, what else? Because I've got famous since I saw you. When I saw you last, I was just nobody, there was like 4 of us. And now there's more. And so I got some implants. Not the normal ones. Have you guys ever heard of nudicles? Do you know what nudicles are? They're basically, if you get your dog neutered, and he's feeling like under-equipped, they're silicone dog balls is what they are. So I had, 7 of them put in. Which isn't, that good for you guys, since I've changed my outfit. But, when I go through the full body scanning thing at the airport, I'm impressive. The guy was like, whoa! And I found that out after I was talking to Seattle, and this veterinarian came up and he goes, they have horse nudicles? And I was like, no way! And I go, how big are they? And this is exactly how he showed me. He goes, they're like this. And I'm like this? How do you know they're like this? But you'll know next time I come to Chicago, if I'm sort of walking a little funnier, then I've had new implants. But if you had nudicles like this, you could just run against walls and come off like a super ball. And so then I'm talking about this in Denver because I'm going around the world telling everybody about my nudicles. What do you guys talk about? And this guy says, well, the guy that invented nudicles was like this big alpha male guy, and he just couldn't stand the idea that his Rottweiler didn't have junk. And so the first nudicles were made of hard plastic, and they clacked. And I thought, that would be awesome. If I would have known that, I would have had hellhounds and Dirty Job would have had plastic clacking. Like the crocodile in Peter Pan with the clock? It's like you're walking down a dark alley and you hear but it's a giant hellhound with clacking nudicles behind it. It would be a great story element, so look for that in the sequel to A Dirty Job. Let's see. Let's talk about that. Oh, I got a new hat. Yeah, I was really anxious about this book tour because it was a vampire book, Turns out somebody has written one of those before. So I was feeling really insecure, so I went and I bought this hat, and I felt great for a day, and then I started being really anxious that I was going to lose my hat. So I went back to the North Face to get another hat, the North Face in San Francisco is 4 stories tall, and I took the escalator, and I got to the top, and they went, I'm not going to sell you anything. I took the escalator in North Face. They're like, I don't know, it was a test. If you're taking the escalator, you don't need North Face shit. So, I don't even have an emergency backup hat. Sorry. I saw today that did you guys see that the RNC got busted for spending $2,000 going to a place to watch simulated lesbian sex acts? Anybody here a simulated lesbian? I just thought that was funny. I live in San Francisco and I've never met a simulated lesbian. That would be funny. Let's see, what else do we have? I'm sorry, normally I have a podium, so I don't have to do this to look at notes. I'm ignoring them anyway, but it gives me time to think of what I am going to say by looking at these things. Let's talk about the book, I guess. So I never wanted to write a vampire book in the first place. I wanted to write a book about a blues singer from Clarksdale, Mississippi, and how he had come to Chicago and become, like Muddy Waters and those guys, but he didn't come when they did, like in the 30s, he waited until he was 80 years old and then decided he was going to, I'm as good as they are. And so I had a multiple book contract with a publisher that said they would take Coyote Blue, which was my second book, and then an idea to be agreed upon. So I had to give them 5 ideas that I was thinking about writing. And years ago, I worked for this radio station. I'm getting to the book part. Where called KOTR Radio in Cambria, California, KOTR, or Wet and Free Radio for the Central Coast. And I came up with that and I used it because it was a very low bar for like getting a job there. In fact, it was so bad that when somebody would call in sick for their shift, the station manager would go out on Highway 1 and pick up hitchhikers and bring them back and teach them how to use the turntables. And he'd go, "You're a DJ, go." Honestly, and they'd be on the air, and then I'd come in for my shift, and they'd be all passed out. And we'd be going, Dark Side of the Moon would just be playing. So anyway, I wrote this story. They would let you do anything. I mean, the advantage of not being paid is, it's like, what do you want to do on radio? It's like, whale song for 10 hours. And I wrote this story about a guy who has a vampire girlfriend who is afraid of her, loves her, but he's afraid of her, so he puts her in the freezer until he can figure out what to do with her. And I didn't think much about it, but then I had to come up with these 5 ideas for this publisher. And the one I wanted to do was the blues idea. So that was like a 3-page synopsis, and like, boy, this will be awesome. And, all these people in Chicago will love it. It's the blues. And then it was like, and then I had this thing about this vampire girlfriend, and they put her in the freezer. You probably don't want me to write that. So I wait. The editor calls me. He goes, "I want you to do the vampire book." Fuck me. And I'm like, okay. So I wrote Bloodsucking Fiends, and it turned out that a vampire book isn't really a vehicle for big themes or any of that stuff that you're supposed to put in for college courses, and which now I have software for. And Great American Novel 2.0, and it was really fun. And so I thought, well, I'll write another one at some point. So I sort of left it open. But then the publisher only printed 9 copies, maybe 10. I know my mom bought one, so I was good. And they gave me 2 because that's what you get as the author. But basically, the other 6 or 7 were just remainder. And you can't do a sequel to a book that sold 9 copies. So I had to wait sufficiently until you guys would just buy anything I wrote, thank you, to write You Suck, the second one. And when I went to write You Suck, as you guys probably realize, I don't want to write the same book over and over again. That's why you go, we don't know what he does. It'll probably be funny, but it could be about anything. And I needed to write, I wanted to write it part of it in the voice of the 16-year-old goth girl, Abby Normal, who, it might be a surprise to you, but the voice of a 16-year-old goth girl does not come that naturally to me, an aged white man. So I went on all these different goth blog sites, and I would read these kids' goth blogs, and my wife-like girlfriend would come into the room and see what was on the screen, and she'd go, "The FBI's just going to bust down the door." And I'm like, no, I'm not interacting, I'm just lurking like a big creepy bird. And so I constructed this entire sort of vocabulary from all these different kids writing these blogs. And the cool thing about it, the good thing about it, was I went, wow, these kids can really use language. They can string adjectives together like Edgar Allan Poe about their mopiness. And I thought, well, but it was a good thing. I thought, okay, there's still writers out there, and they had a nice sense of irony about their own mopiness and the sort of dark outlook on the world. And I thought, we're going to be okay. And so then I went off and did Fool, which is the rewriting of King Lear from the point of view of the Fool. So I had to sort of learn another dialect. I had to take Elizabethan dialect from Shakespeare's plays and make it into something that normal people would understand. It would sound Elizabethan-y, which is a word I just made up. But it wouldn't be. It would just kind of have these and nows occasionally. So you go, oh yeah, this is definitely olden times. Let's see what my time looks like. When did I start? Okay, I don't want to, I know you guys have to get to work and have lives and stuff. Anyway, so basically, Chantal, you want to know about language quantum leaps or no? No? Yes? Yeah. Let's see hands. Yes or no? Yes? Okay. Because it's not funny now. So here's what happened, and I'll do this fast, so make sure you get the notes later. In about 1476, a guy named William Caxton gets a printing press from Gutenberg, who was like the guy, I guess. I don't know if that was Gutenberg, but he was just getting the first printing press, and he starts putting English language words into print, which is, up till that time, English is like every 12 miles you go in what is now the UK, they speak a different dialect. They can't really talk to each other. It's not one language. And Caxton decides he's going to print Canterbury Tales into a language people can understand and translate Beowulf and a bunch of Latin things. And he's the guy who is responsible for things like enough being spelled with a GH for the F sound. Really? Because he went, oh, I'm out of F's. Oh. I swear to God, you think I'm joking, but that's absolutely true. Many of the weird-ass spellings we have in English are due to Caxton, his movable typing. So, oh, I'm out of F's. GH, that's an F sound now. So blame him. So all of a sudden, we start to get a language that we all can understand. We're all speaking the same language because it's written down somewhere. And then Henry VIII, commissions 3 different Bibles to be written in English because he's like, oh, the Germans have one, we need one. And so there's some other funny guy over there. I'd go over there. There's no Shakespeare lesson. So then Shakespeare happens, and late 1500s. And the thing is, he invents 1,800 words, just up out of whole cloth, out of nowhere. He comes up with 1,800 words. That's a huge genius, and there's no doubt about it. But also, the conditions of the language weren't set. I mean, he probably was going around, oh my God, we have no word for spoon. And so, our coffee has no way to be stirred. And so he, then all our forks are wet. So he came up with all these different words. And that's not going to happen again. And that's like the 29-foot long jump. You guys know the reason that Mexico City, this is cultural literacy, and you'll need this for the test. When people talk about the 29-foot long jump, what happened is the long jump, the Olympic long jump, went over the period of 75 years, it moved 8 inches, the record. But then in Mexico City in 1968, because it's in Mexico City at like a mile high and the air's thin, the guy breaks the long jump record by 22 inches, almost 2 feet. It's never going to happen again, unless they like hold it on the moon. And that was what happened with Shakespeare. He had this huge leap, and the language sort of became what we speak now, basically, during that 135-year period between Caxton and... So, getting back to Abby Normal and reading the blogs. 2006, I read all these blogs, I get Abby Normal's dialect down, I've got all these new sort of acronym words and so forth. The Urban Dictionary, you guys all know about, where if you're a teabagger, you probably should have checked for that. This is its 10th year anniversary. They have 4.8 million definitions in 10 years. So we're in that kind of revolution again. I went back to the blog sites to bite me and refresh, the Abby Normal's dialect. They're gone. All the blogs are gone. I mean, the stupid kids are still there, so there's like 2 sentences, and they're illiterate. Because they've all moved on to texting and Facebook updates, or versions of that sort of social networking update. Everything's 140 characters. So whatever revolution was going on has even changed more. And I think it's going to get to a point, the generations are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. I remember horrified listening to my cop dad say the word cool for the first time. And he said it like the way I speak French, like I've got a dead snail in my mouth. Yeah, that's a hint. At 50, don't try to learn a new language. I just walked around alienating French people last year. What? Anyway, I tried, but it was clearly not French that I was speaking to them. So anyway, that's sort of that's the only information you're going to get for this thing. And I'm going to take a couple of questions and then sign books for you guys. I know that's not really a good wrap up, but I'm worried about this being a lunch thing and you guys have to get on with your lives. So yeah. By the way, thank you for that question. I will answer it in a moment. I know I haven't been here in a while, so you don't have to ask me about Bite Me. I mean, that's why they're paying the bills. But you know, I haven't been here. You want to ask me? Lamb is obviously the book that I'm most proud of because it was freaking hard. No, I mean, part of the things you do is I mean, I do as a writer. I said, you know, when I started, I didn't want to write the same book over and over again. And I thought if I pick things I'm not sure I'm able to do, then I probably will get better. And that at some point I'll hit a wall and you'll go, oh, then you had those noodles in. But that was just basically, I had seen a thing on PBS called From Jesus to Christ, and they went, you know, there were 30 years of Christ's life that weren't covered in the Gospels. And I went, well, you know, somebody should write those. And I don't know anything about religion or history. I should be that somebody. And so I set about doing that, and the fact that I pulled it off is, to this day, amazing to me. But I try to set those kind of, I mean, I'll do a book like the vampire books, which I'm pretty sure I can do, and that's to satisfy my publisher to not be too long between books. But then I do something like Fool. It's like, yeah, I'm going to write Shakespeare's greatest tragedy as a comedy. You know, and then go, what the hell was I always get in the middle of these and go, what the hell was I thinking? Always. But yeah, definitely Lamb is my, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's certainly the one I'm most proud of just because it was such a huge project. So, another question? Yeah. Will any of them be made into movies? I cannot answer that. I can tell you that all of them but two have been sold for movies, and that there are people who, and if I may quote, we're really excited about this, Chris, who are really excited about making them into movies, but it turns out I make books better than people who make movies, and I don't get involved in it. But all of them except Fool and Bite Me have sold for movies, and Fool I've had offers, but I won't sell the stage rights. And they always want the stage, because I'm going to put it on the stage. No, I am going to put it. I don't know where yet, because I got to finish this other book, because it turns out it's going to be work. I can't just like set the book on the stage. Otherwise, you know, mission accomplished. But the thing about the theater is they want to work with the writer. You get to actually talk to the actors and the director, and you come up with it. And in Hollywood, this is how the conversation goes. Oh my God, your imagination is awesome. We've never seen anything like it. This needs to be on the big screen. It's so original. And then the next call after you have the contract is, well, you really don't know anything about making movies, and it has to be like other stuff so people can recognize it. So, you know, I just take their checks and move on. Stupidest Angel has been really close to starting to film for a year. I mean, they were supposed to start filming last July, and then some contract thing happened, and they were supposed to start in the fall, and Mia Ho-Ho was supposed to play Molly, and she had to go do Resident Evil 5. And, you know, evidently they had more zombies than us, so now it's supposed to start filming in May. And the guy that has Dirty Job now is actually getting movies made. He's a producer that really, you know, does make movies instead of just gets excited about it. And so it could happen, but nothing's in danger of being made right now. Gentleman right there. What influences me to have reoccurring characters in the different books? You guys. I mean, it's really, when you're reading it and you meet somebody that you know from another book and it wasn't telegraphed, you all of a sudden go, what the hell? Don't you feel like it's kind of just you and me, and I'm kind of fucking with you? I mean, don't you? When I've encountered that in other people's books, like, well, that's so cool. I mean, I remember early on, like in the 70s or early 80s, reading like a Stephen King book and going, hey, that's the gas station guy that should have been killed in the last book, or something, you know, because it was all Castle Rock and all that. And I just sort of do that, and then it's by request. It really is. You guys keep writing me and go, I was getting all these letters going, I want to see Roberto the Fruit Bat. I want to see Roberto the Fruit Bat. I need anything more about Roberto the Fruit Bat from Island of Secret Love Nut. And I was not going to go back to Micronesia and live with natives again for another book. You know, I kind of done that. And I went, well, I'm doing a Christmas book. Why can't I have a giant Micronesian? California for Christmas. And so Roberto the Fruit Bat and Tucker Case ended up in the Christmas book. So I'm one of the few novelists that works by request. And I like that life's going on with my characters even when I'm not watching them. You know, like you kind of see that they don't just go like from here to here. Stuff's happened between the last time we saw them, like between Blessed Lizard of Melancholy Cove and Stupidest Angel. Molly and Theo got married, and you know they live in a different place. And you'll see in Bite Me, if you haven't read it yet, you're all of a sudden going to see somebody that you go, what the hell is he doing here? But you'll like it. But basically, it's by request. It's things like I don't want to write the same book again. I don't want to be doing it over and over and over and over again. But that doesn't mean that I don't want some familiarity to come back. And certainly my San Francisco books, you know, always include the Emperor and the cops. The cop Rivero has worked in like 10 different cities, I think. But it's basically by request because you guys want that. So sure, right here. What am I working on? I'm working on a novel about 19th century French painters. And this goes back to this gentleman's question about, you know, what are you most proud of? And I pick books that are hard. Man, is it hard to write about painting and make it funny. As I'm doing this, and this has just happened, you know, in the last couple of months. I'm writing this book about painters and painting in Paris in the late 1900s, and I keep thinking about this Frank Zappa quote where he said about rock journalists that writing about music is like dancing about architecture, and I'm just sitting there at my computer going, this is like dancing about architecture. You know, I love painting and painters, and one of the things I love about coming to Chicago is you guys have some of the best art in the world, literally. And I always go look at it and go, this is still freaking awesome. But trying to bring that to the page turns out is kind of hard. I'm not whining, it's a good job. But that's what I'm working on now. And I'm not even halfway through it, so it'll be a while before that comes out. But yeah, this could be the one where you can hear the noodles hit the wall. Another question? Yeah, this one. Out of all my characters, who would I most like to be friends with in real life? That's interesting. Nobody's ever asked me that. I always think, you know, they ask me, well, like, who's most like me, but never who I would like to be friends with, because a lot of my characters are rascals, and it would be sort of fun to watch them, you know, like Pocket from Fool. But I don't know if I'd want to hang out with them. You know? I like my female characters, I think, more. If I were going to hang out with my characters, I'd like to hang out with, like, Jodie from the vampire books, or Molly would be interesting. You know, the Magdalene from Lamb, she's an awesome character. As far as personalities I'd like to be friends with, it would probably be the female characters that I'd like to be friends with, you know, although we know that's impossible and they're all hot. So. But maybe Charlie Asher from A Dirty Job. He seems like a great guy. He seems like a really nice, you know, neurotic guy. So you know, he and I would resonate in that way. This gentleman had a question. I'm sorry, back to the strangest inspiration I've gotten for a character. It's definitely strange in that it was real. This character, how many have had a chance to read the book? Now I've been out here for a week, not too many of you. You'll meet very early on, so it's not a spoiler. You'll meet this little Japanese guy in San Francisco that has a samurai sword, and he comes in and rescues the emperor, you know, because of his awesome ninja skills. And I was going to dinner one night, and I'm totally name dropping here because I can, with Ed Hardy. That's a real guy, you know. That's not just a brand name. There is a guy who is Ed Hardy, and I was going to dinner with Ed Hardy and another friend one night, and I was walking through the Jackson Street area of San Francisco, which is a very old, didn't get destroyed by the earthquake area. There was this little guy walking down the street. He was a Japanese guy, and he had on like a pork pie hat that was like highway safety orange, and highway safety orange socks, and like plaid pants, and like a Mr. Rogers cardigan sweater, and hush puppies. And he was, and he weighed like maybe 90 pounds soaking wet, and he's kind of just very dignifiedly walking down the street with the walking stick. that was a samurai sword in its sheath. And the cops are driving by and stuff, and I'm like, that dude is heavily armed. And there was all of a sudden there was like, that's why he's looking so confident, despite his completely absurd socks and hat. And so at that point, I have a really bad iPhone picture of him, which is the definition of an iPhone picture, is a really bad. It could be a cat, it could be a Japanese guy with a samurai sword. And I thought, that guy's got to go in the book. And so it turns out he shows up, I think, in the first chapter of Bite Me. That's the strangest inspiration, is just to go. But I've run into that over the time, is where you just see somebody and you go, that person's got to go in a book. Jodie herself was the vampire in all these books. I was on the number 42 bus in San Francisco, and this woman got on the bus that had this cake of red hair. Beautiful, gorgeous red hair, like buck length. And I went, that's a full-time job. I'm just like, that's got to be, her whole life has to revolve around taking care of that. And then, and it was curly, so it was like, and that's out of hand, so I just thought, but how striking would it be? You would never forget that. I mean, this was 15 years ago, and I still remember what that woman looked like. And I thought, okay, she's going to go in the book. That's going to be the distinguishing character. So all through the vampire books, they refer to, did you see a redhead? Did you see the redhead? Because I just thought, that's got to rule this woman's life. And if it doesn't, I'm sure that's how she identifies herself. So anyway, it comes from usually some real person that I see, and then the sea monsters and stuff, not so much. Yeah, gentleman way back then.
I was wondering, how often do you use consultants to help you write your books? Like a lot of the combat and action that you write is really, really interesting and actually pretty accurate. I teach combat. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm like, wow, did it come from you, or did you bring somebody in who talks about police weaponry, or?
Combat action stuff that I write is accurate. And do I use consultants? Actually, I am a badass. Obviously. Because I have this pink drink here. Just I'm confident. I don't really use consultants so much. Sometimes I do for scientific stuff, like the geology and fluke was hard. The biology was really hard. And I hung out with marine mammal biologists. But the combat stuff, my dad was a cop. I grew up with a cop. I know how to use firearms. I know firearms. I'm never going to have anybody put the safety on in a revolver, and that irritates me to no end. Or pull the clip out of a revolver, that sort of stuff. I used to be a pretty good combat shot. I've had back in the day, and a long time ago, I had a little bit of martial arts training. But you can also read about that stuff, and you can say I studied a little bit of weaponry history as far as there's a couple of my books have old Japanese weaponry, and there's a lot of that stuff available online. But as far as actually consulting for the combat stuff, no. For the science stuff, yeah, because I'm not that awesome at science. But I get people offer all the time, if you ever need to know this, give me a call. And they think I won't. And in fact, there's a guy who's a very good friend of mine I had dinner with last night, but years ago, he said, I'm a pilot for United, and if you ever need to know anything about commercial aviation, let me know. And so I was getting ready to write Island of the Sea of Lebanon, and I wrote to him and I said, hey, how do you steal a 747? and it wasn't as sensitive in those days as it is now. And he goes, oh, well, you just drop through the emergency thing on the top, and you go in, and you get a piece of cake. And because you just got to have somebody leave the hatch open, the emergency escape hatch open. And I was like, cool. And so in Island of the Sea of Lebanon, that's how they steal a 747. And so don't offer, and then I get the guys like, do you need any plastic noodles? Which is like, not anymore. You had a question here. Who's my favorite character to get in the head of to write? I really liked writing Pocket from Cool. He's such a rascal that everything you have to do has to be rascally. And also crafted because it speaks in a different language. So he was really, really fun to write. And he's also little, so he has to be really clever. He can't be he's not a badass like me. He has to, he has to be quicker and faster and smarter than everybody in the whole book. And so it's a challenge to write him, and he's fun. But I love writing from the point of view of dogs. It's like in Bite Me, there's a cadaver dog named Marvin. He's a Doberman, a big red Doberman, and his whole thing is, I found the dead person, where's the biscuit? And so all this stuff, it has dialogue, and it's like, Camuto said this, and Rivera said this, and then the Emperor said this, and Marvin thought biscuit. and there all this action's going on, and they're fighting vampires and whatnot, and Marvin's saying, we have an agreement here. When I find the dead people, I get the biscuit. Where's the biscuit at? So it's one of my favorite things to do is to write, like squirrel point of view or a dog point of view or stuff like that. So that's it. One more question, and then we're going to have to sign books, you guys. Anyone? Unless we don't have a question, in which case we'll sign books. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to...
I don't know if I'm going to tell. Oh, okay.
I always forgot. Who came from far? Where'd you come from? That's way far. Where'd you come from? Wurzel, Indiana? Warsaw. That's not a good. Anyone? If you're standing probably way back there, how far did you come from? For this? I don't mean if you were born there and you moved there 20 years ago. That's far, huh? Kind of far. Anybody over here? You know what, you guys? I want you to... Where'd you come from, dear? For this? Oh, you definitely get a T-shirt. You know what? The other day, we did this, and the people who we gave T-shirts to didn't get them. So if those of you guys who I kind of called out would move forward, we'll try and get you some T-shirts, and then I'm going to keep the rest for really pathetic stories as it comes in the world. And man, and don't be